He came back on a Wednesday. She had known he would. She'd felt it building through Tuesday the way weather built, a pressure change in the signal her chest had been carrying since the crossing. The warm, cold note deepening through the day, until by 9 in the evening it was less a note than a chord, layered and resonant and pointed in a direction she was learning to read. She put on the kettle. She sat at the kitchen table with her hands around a mug she hadn't filled yet, and she waited, because she was done pretending she didn't know what was coming. At midnight exactly, the shadows in the corner of the living room coalesced. She appreciated the punctuality. It seemed consistent with him. He was more solid tonight than he'd been in his first appearance. Less of the shadow at his edges, more committed to the physical space he occupied, as if crossing had become easier with practice, or as if he'd made a decision about how much of himself to bring. The tattoos shifted at his collar, at his wrists. His eyes found her immediately. She felt the contact of his gaze before she saw it, the same way you felt a hand before it landed.
You made tea?
I made tea. I didn't make you any, because I didn't know if you... Do you?
Number.
Useful information. Sit down, if that's something you do.
He looked at the chair across from her. Looked at it with the specific attention of someone for whom furniture was a theoretical concept rather than an operational one. Then he crossed the kitchen, and she watched this, the way he moved, because she hadn't been close enough before to see it properly, and she'd been curious. He moved like something that had learned the mechanics of human locomotion and reproduced them precisely, but had not quite integrated the casual carelessness of it. Everything deliberate, everything exact. He sat, across from her, at her kitchen table, in the chair that was usually occupied by Gemma's bag and her own mail. Azrael sat. And the kitchen became a different room, smaller and larger simultaneously, the way rooms always became different rooms when the most significant thing in them arrived.
You said you would come back.
Yes.
And that you had more to say about the mechanisms, the ancient ones, the ways in which the living and the dead have been bound to each other. I've been doing my own research. Soul binding, eternal bonding, living-death marriages. Every culture has a version of it, Persephone and Hades being the most obvious. But there's the Celtic bean-knee bonding, the Aztec Mictecaccihuatl consort mythology, the Japanese Izanami compacts. You're in all of them, aren't you? Or something like you.
Different faces, different names. The architecture is the same.
Because it happened. Not once, multiple times.
The bindings have been attempted multiple times. Completed successfully is a smaller number.
How small?
None that held.
What broke them?
The living cannot sustain the connection. The shadow realm draws on them. The bond requires a continuous exchange of essence, life force against death energy. The living giving something of themselves and receiving something of me in return. Mortal constitutions fail. The exchange overwhelms them. The bond deteriorates and takes the mortal with it, usually more quickly than the original cause of death would have.
So the binding has historically been a faster way to die.
Yes.
But?
There's a but, or you wouldn't be here. You crossed the membrane without dying. You touched me without dying. Your threshold sensitivity is not equivalent to those documented in any prior case. It is not a degree of the same quality. It is a different quality entirely. You are not permeable to the shadow realm. You are native to it. In some measure, that has no precedent.
Native.
The shadow sickness is not attacking you. It is completing you. The parts of you that belong to the other side are becoming more present. The parts that are purely mortal are diminishing. Under ordinary conditions, the mortal parts diminish entirely, and what remains disperses. The soul coherence fails, because there is no longer sufficient physical anchor. Under extraordinary conditions, under the conditions of a binding that could sustain the non-mortal aspects, rather than demanding more than they could give, the dispersal might not occur.
You're saying I'm already partly made of whatever you're made of?
In a manner that is approximate, but not inaccurate.
And that's why I survived the crossing, and the touch.
And why the sickness presents as it does in you, rather than as it does in ordinary patients. Your soul coherence isn't failing, it's shifting, moving from one register to another. Without an anchor, that shift is fatal. The mortal parts go first, and the rest has nothing to hold to.
But the binding would be the anchor.
The binding would give the non-mortal aspects somewhere to go, rather than simply somewhere to fall from.
What does the binding actually entail? Not the mythology, not the Persephone version. What does it require?
It is a merging of essences, my death energy and your life force, combined and exchanged until they become interdependent, until the separation of them would be as fatal to me as to you.
You're including yourself in that.
The binding is mutual. It has never been otherwise.
Sure, it would affect you. You'd be, what, diminished if I died?
More than diminished. We would be bonded, entirely. Whatever you experienced, I would be aware of. Whatever you needed.
You'd feel it.
Yes.
That's not a small thing to offer. For something that's been alone for...
Do not make it about sympathy.
I wasn't. I was going to say it changes the nature of the exchange. You're not offering this purely as charity, or as an experiment. There's something in it for you, too.
Yes.
Tell me how it works. The actual mechanism. The ritual.
The merging of essences is not metaphorical.
I didn't think it was.
It is physical as much as it is metaphysical. The exchange must be direct, intimate. The life force runs through the body. The death energy runs through mine. For them to combine, we must be combined.
You mean we'd have to sleep together?
That is the colloquial approximation.
But accurate.
Accurate enough.
And it would hurt.
The merging is considerable. The first time especially. The essences are not naturally compatible. They must be persuaded into coexistence. The process is...
Violent.
Yes.
And after? If I survive the first one.
The bond stabilizes. The subsequent mergings are less violent, more
Don't stop on my account.
necessary. The bond requires maintenance. The exchange must continue or the anchor weakens. It is not optional after the first ritual. It is part of the biology of the thing.
So I'd be bound to you, in every way, indefinitely.
Yes.
And the immortality, that's a consequence of the bond, not a separate...
A consequence. The non-mortal aspects of you, anchored through the bond and sustained by the exchange, would not be subject to ordinary mortality. The shadow sickness would complete its work, and you would complete with it, rather than be destroyed by it.
I'd become What you are? What I am? Something between?
Something that has not been before. There is no existing category for what you would become. The binding has never held. There is no document of what stands on the other side of it.
So we'd both be in uncharted territory.
Yes.
Noelle was quiet for a long moment. The harbor sounds came through the window, the buoys, the water, the ambient machinery of the cove going about its dark business. Normal sounds, ordinary sounds, the sounds of the world she'd built her small, compressed, carefully managed life inside. She thought about what the doctor had said, transitional rather than terminal. She thought about the shimmer of all the souls she'd watched release themselves from bodies over 6 years, the ones that went with ambivalence, the ones that went with relief, and the ones, very few, very rare, that went with something that looked almost like eagerness, as if they'd been waiting for permission. She thought about the cold in her chest and the way it had gone warm when she'd said his name. She thought about his hand in hers, and neither of them dying. She looked across the table at him.
Can I ask you something that isn't about the ritual?
Yes.
Do you want this? Not the academic question of whether it's possible, not the mechanics of it. Do you want this? Being bound to a dying woman you've watched for years from the wrong side of a membrane, having to feel whatever I feel, being tethered.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I haven't said yes yet. I need to think about what I'm giving up, about what she's giving up, about what the version of me that exists after this would owe to the version of me that exists now. That's not a small thing to figure out.
No, it is not.
But I want you to understand that I'm not saying no. I'm saying I need to be certain, and I can't be certain tonight, and you didn't expect me to be certain tonight.
No, I did not.
Good. So we're negotiating.
Yes, we are negotiating.
There are things I'd want to know before I decide. About the shadow realm, about what the bond actually feels like from the inside. About you. You're asking me to tie myself to you for what, eternity? Whatever that means for something like what I'd become. I want to know what I'm tying myself to.
What would you want to know?
Everything, eventually. We can start with whatever you think I should hear first.
Then come here tomorrow night, and the night after. Ask your questions. I will answer what I can.
And the nights after that?
We will see what you decide.
One more question. Tonight,
Yes?
if I say yes, if we do this, and it goes wrong, if I'm not what you think I am and the binding fails, and the mortal parts of me go anyway, what happens to you?
That is not a concern that should factor into your decision.
You didn't answer the question.
No, I did not.
I'll be here tomorrow night.
He rose from the table. The shadows gathered themselves around him in that accompanying way, not concealing, not retreating, simply present. He looked at her from his full height across the kitchen.
Noelle.
Azrael. His gaze moved over her face one more time, slow and complete, and then he dissolved into the kitchen dark the way he always did, gently, like a breath released. And she was alone. She sat at the table for a very long time. Then she picked up her mug and drank the cold tea without grimacing. Because she had 6 months or fewer, and she was done wasting time on the temperature of things. She opened her notebook. At the top of a new page, in her small, precise handwriting, she wrote,
What I am giving up.
She looked at the heading. She looked at the dark corner of the living room where the shadows were simply shadows now, where the air had the particular quality of a space from which something had recently been subtracted. She turned to a second page. At the top of that one, she wrote,
What I would become.
She put down the pen and looked at what she'd written for a long time. Outside, the harbor sounds continued their dark choreography. Inside, the cold in her chest held its chord, patient and constant, waiting like something that had learned, over a very long time, the particular skill of waiting. She picked up the pen again. On the second page, below the heading, she wrote one word.
Alive.